Hello, everybody, and welcome to the top 5 new comics for February 27th and 28th of 2024. I'm, as always, Chris, and I want to wish everybody a happy leap year. We get February 29th this year, everybody. You don't care about that. So let's get to these awesome comics we got, starting with Avengers Twilight number 3. This is written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Daniel Acuna. I gotta laugh when I do these videos because you do them week to week, month to month. Sometimes the same books keep popping up, and this actually happens a lot in this episode. But there's a reason for that. And Avengers Twilight has been just a blast. It's exactly the type of book that is directed towards me. It's got one of my favorite artists, probably my favorite writer currently working on it. It's an Avengers title set in a neo future, but at its core, it just reminds me of a Dark Knight Returns for Captain America. We're talking about one of my favorite books of all time with one of my favorite characters in comics. So just everything here has been really good. And one of the great things about the last issue was when Steve goes to Kamala Khan in this future, and we see Kamala Khan as a woman in her 30s or 40s with a child, and we've always seen Kamala Khan as this teenage kid who looks up to Captain Marvel and is very much like kind of fangirly, and there's a lot of fun to be had in that. And it's one of the reasons that I really like the character is she brings the fun in everything she does. But we see her later in life. She's grown up. She's a different person, and she's put the superhero thing behind her. And if you can't tell by the cover here, it seems like even though she turned Steve down, she's coming to the fray. She's coming to the front lines. And I'm really excited to see what that is. Who is Kamala Khan 20, 30 years from now when she grows up and she has this whole different life? I'm pretty sure anyone out there that's my age or even a little bit younger can say the man I was at 18 or the man I was at 14 is not the man you see sitting right here in front of you. And those changes are built on what we go through in life. So Kamala, as a teenager being a superhero, goes to this traumatic event with the Avengers and then has to give it up and go try to live a normal life and be a mother. And what does that do to a person? And what does it mean to her to go back to that? There's so many cool threads to be pulled here for this character in particular. And then there's all the beasts, the other stories going on with Iron Man's kid taking up the mantle as a bad guy, Captain America and these underground defenders and what they're going to do because the original plan didn't work. It's just such a well thought out, well crafted, and great book all around. And then you got Daniel Acuna just drawing the hell out of these panels. I love this book. Unless it really flops near the end, this is going to be a book I'm talking about in December. It's one of the best books of the year. It's that good, everybody. I'm really enjoying it. If you have not been caught up with it, try to find the first 2 issues and pick it up because it's just a blast. After that, I've got Punisher number 4. This is written by David Pepose with art by Dave Wachter. Another book I'm pretty sure has been every time it's come out has been on this series, and it's because it's a great book. The Punisher series that David and Dave are putting together here has kind of broke all odds for me. And I've talked about this multiple times, but like I'm not a huge Frank Castle fan. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what a disgrace it is that Frank's not in this book. I don't care. I think mantles are replaceable, especially in comics. Like we've seen so many times it happen, and sometimes the companies go a little crazy with it and it causes controversy. Sometimes they do too many at once and it causes controversy. Sometimes it's done very well and it causes controversy. But at the end of the day, it's not that the character and the mantle has changed. It's how it's done. I go back to Jason Aaron's Thor as the right way to do it. Like, he did one of the best Thor runs of all time. And in the middle of it, he says, let's spoiler alert for Jason Aaron's Thor. But he says in the middle of it, Thor is no longer worthy. He has to give up the hammer. Who's going to pick it up? Jane Foster's going to pick it up. And Jane Foster is going to be the new Thor for a good, I think it was 3 or 4 years. And becomes a hero in her own right coming out of that. And I think we got something here, not necessarily a hero, but we've got a character here who I could see coming back in the future, doing different things. I like this idea. It's a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, kind of gone rogue. He's retired. Somebody kills all of his family. And so he accidentally picks up the mantle of Punisher and is trying to figure out who did this and why. Now, at the end of the day, it all depends how this series ends, whether we see him again. You can tell by the cover, Jigsaw was kind of revealed in the last issue. We don't know if it's the Jigsaw, but there is a Jigsaw in this book because Punisher has to fight Jigsaw, just like Captain America has to fight a Red Skull and Superman has to fight Lex Luthor. Batman has to fight Joker. But we get that as kind of, that's who's behind all this, is the feeling I'm getting from how that issue ended. So where this ends is dependent on where this character goes moving forward. And it's comics, so I have a feeling it'll end in a way that will, I'm sure David will end it in a way that is satisfying, but at the same time, leaves it open for him to come back for something in the future. And they've built a really great character here. It's a great action book. I've said it every time, but it's Punisher meets John Wick. As a guy who's not a big Punisher fan, I've said on record many times, like, one of my favorite Punisher runs is Frankencastle because of how weird and stupid it is. Because it's not just a guy with a gun kills bad guy. I understand there's a lot of Punisher fans out there, and, God bless you. Like, I'm glad you found something you loved. For me personally, it gets monotonous seeing the Punisher do the same thing over and over again. And although we're kind of doing it here with this character, we found a twist that makes it interesting for me. And it's been a really great run. And I hope all the Punisher fans out there are enjoying it in the moment too, because this is a really good run of a character who doesn't get his own book. He's not never getting a book, but he doesn't have a regular title going on all the time. So when you get I have plenty of characters like that I love. And when you get those titles and they're good, enjoy them in the moment. Don't worry about whether it's Frank or this new guy or whatever. Just enjoy the fact that you got a book named Punisher with that premise held intact, and it's really good. So to everybody out there, like, just go check this book out. It's a ton of fun. If you like a lot of action, some pretty cool death sequences, and I gotta give it up to David too. He's pulled villains in this book that, as a longtime Marvel fan, I have never heard of, and I've had to look up multiple times. So kudos for your research, Pepose, and everything you've put in this book. After that, got The Savage Sword of Conan #1. This is written by John Arcudi, Patrick Zircher, and Jim Zub, with art by Max von Fafner and Patrick Zircher. I have become a Conan fan over the past 5-6 years. When Marvel took it over, that's what really got me to try out Conan, mostly because Jason Aaron was writing Conan, and I love Jason Aaron's work, so I'm gonna try anything he does. And I really like that run. I liked his King Conan, but it didn't. A lot of times with a character you're not familiar with, you pick it up with a new creative team that you're into, and you wonder sometimes, is it the creative team, is the character? And I thought it was the creative team, so I dropped it when Jim Zub took over, and that was a mistake because I went back and I read some other Conan stuff, some of the original Marvel Years books, and a few of the Dark Horse stuff, and I was like, oh, I really like this premise, this character. I mean, I like the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. I never saw the new one. Never read any of the books, but it was a cool fantasy book that didn't have like a pinky up feeling. It didn't take itself super seriously, while at the same time taking itself really seriously. And I just like it's brutal, it's action packed. I mean, Conan's not exactly a character who has a ton of depth, while at the same time you can drag so much depth out of him. I just grew to love the character. So now we're getting Savage Sword of Conan, a black and white anthology series. Jim Zub's doing a story in that. And I'm really interested to see what we get here and how this character works in that format. And I know everybody out there who's a big Conan fan's like, of course it works. We've done this a million times. But for me, like, we got some cool creatives on this. I like what Titan Comics is doing with the IP. There's just a ton to love here. And yeah, I've become a Conan the Barbarian fan later in life because of trying new things. And now I'm looking forward to the next one. After that, I've got Newburn, number 15. This is written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Jacob Phillips. So I talked about earlier, Chip Zdarsky being one of my favorite writers, probably my favorite writer currently working. Jacob Phillips being the son of Sean Phillips, the guy who works with Ed Brubaker a lot, that's one of my favorite team-ups in comics. I love everything those guys do from Criminal on down. And Jacob's been working with his dad for a while, doing inks, colors, all that kind of stuff, and has some books of his own as well, and this being one of them. And Chip taking on this idea of all the crime bosses have a detective that they pay to settle differences. And when that kind of goes wrong, and you see along the way, it doesn't always go as smoothly as you would hope. I mean, who knew working with crime bosses would be so hard? It's a really great series with a cool titular character. Newburn being this ex-cop who makes a decision to do this thing, and that's his way of holding back the gang war. But he takes on a new apprentice during this. He's got not only the gangs like kind of pushing against him, he's also not very well liked by the cops in town because they see him as something he isn't, while at the same time knowing exactly his place in this world. It's a really cool book. And one of the things I love the most about Chip as a creator is, and this is no slight to these other creators, but when I think about Ed Brubaker does spy and crime books. And I love spy and crime books. So Ed was an obvious person for me to follow because I love those style of books. And who does it better than Ed Brubaker, along with Steve Epps and Sean Phillips and all the other artists he's worked with over his career. With Chip, I can get Howard the Duck and then turn around and get his Daredevil run, and then and now he's doing the Batman book, which is fairly similar to Daredevil. But then you get Public Domain, which was this really emotional book about creator-owned comics. And then you get this, that's a crime book. Like, the dude doesn't have a lane. He just is creating great stories, or at least stories that he's passionate about. And that's one of the things I love about him. And this book is just proof. Like, if you would have told me 3 years ago, Chip Zdarsky be doing a crime noir book, and I would be into it. I'd be like, I don't know about that. Chip's like, he's got stuff that he's good at, and he's a great comic creator, but that might be going too far, and I would have been wrong. And here we are today. So if you've never read Newburn, there's a few volumes out. You can get them wherever comics are sold. I highly recommend it, especially if you're a fan of Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips books, or just crime books in general. Like, it's just a phenomenal series. And we're going to end with Duke, number 3. This is written by Joshua Williamson with art by Tom Reilly. So once again, a book that's been, ever since it started, on this list. I'm pretty sure every time since I've done this series. Oh no, issue 2 was on. I don't think issue 1 was on because I was not a G.I. Joe guy and I had zero interest in G.I. Joe. Other than having some little interest in getting into the comics, the original series at some point. Never really got into G.I. Joe that much. This Duke book came out and I fell in love with it. And the last issue was just a great like action sequence, one after another. We meet a new character. Our lead character ends up in jail and finds himself in this cell with this other character, who I believe is the Baroness, one of the few G.I. Joe characters I know. And the whole book, it started off as this like UFO conspiracy book, and it's turned more into a military conspiracy book. Like the military is holding something back and they don't want Duke revealing something to the people. And because of who Duke is and his record, people will believe him. I'm really interested to see where this ends. Between this and Cobra Commander, I've just fallen in love with G.I. Joe, the property, at least this version of it. And I think this book in particular, but you can add in Cobra Commander with that. If you're not a G.I. Joe fan, they're good. They're just really good books to jump into that don't assume you know anything other than I'm pretty sure people that are G.I. Joe fans are getting more out of it because the characters that are showing up are known quantities. And so you're probably getting these moments of like, oh, I know who that is, or oh, that's that person, where I'm just, to me, it's a new IP. And I'm just like, okay, like I see what's going on here. I like this. And in my back of your head, like, you know, these are toys that were made in the freaking 80s or whatever. But it's just, when you're reading it, it takes you out of that. And I think the story is so good that you're sucked into it. Duke's phenomenal. This is another book that at the end of the year I will probably be talking about as one of the best books of the year. I know we're so early in the year that's it's insane to talk about that right now, but yeah, that's how good the first couple months of comics have been so far. Like just one banger after another, and doing this list has been hard every week because I go through and I'm just like, damn, like there's a lot of good books coming out and something isn't making that list. But that's the nature of doing a top 5. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. Remember, if you want to follow me at Fortress Chris on your social media of choice, you can probably find me there. ChrisComicsCorner.substack.com is my Substack where I review comics. I do retro reread. I spotlight crowdfunding projects. Just having fun over there. So go over there, subscribe. It's completely free. Comment, let me know on there. It's just a blast over there. So please go over there. If you're enjoying the videos, please like, subscribe, share, and comment down below what your top book for the week is, what your top 5 for the week is, what books I missed, that you're just sitting there grumbling, going, oh, I can't believe he didn't pick X. All that. I want to hear from you a little bit more, and all that. So I appreciate you so much. And I will see y'all here next week.